Oh yeah, what's up, junkies? Welcome back to another episode of Culture Junkie Live. It's your boy Kenshiro. Today we're going to be talking about geek fandom and how toxic things can take a weird turn. Oh, I know you guys can't see me. Sorry about that. Hold on a second. I'll fix that. Just 1 second here. That's better. That's better. Sorry about that. Forgot about that.
There he is.
Yeah, there I am. There I am. So, yeah, we're gonna talk about toxic fans and fandom and how things seem to have really gotten really nasty out there. But joining the show with me today is my friend Fallen Marvel. How you doing, sir?
I am doing relatively well this evening. Glad to be on, and we gonna dive into this tonight. I think tonight's gonna be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Also joining back from she's got a temporary reprieve from her computer issues, Miss LGZ. How are you doing, lady?
Hey, how's everyone doing? I missed you guys so much.
Oh man, you kind of little bit need a little bit of light there. It's kind of hard to see you. You look like you're a shadow right now.
Yeah, well, loaner computer problems. So
I guess we'll have to deal with it as best as we can. Glad to see you. Last but and also not least, from We Got This Covered, Mr. Eric Joseph. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well. It's good to be back. I think it's been at least a couple months since I've been on, but you know, the superhero shows are on break for the summer, and I got Motor City Comic Con well behind me now, which was one of the more memorable experiences I've had at any convention. So yeah, it's been a really great 2018 so far, and I'm looking forward because Kenshiro actually messaged me last minute about being on the show tonight, and decided to hop aboard.
Well, we are glad to have you, my friend. I appreciate that. So, hey, guys, everyone out there, if you think this topic is going to be banging, do make sure you tag your friends. Tell them to join Culture Junkies Live. It is, without doubt, the best geek video podcast on the net, airing live right now. I guarantee you that. So, anyway, we got a lot of stuff to cover in the fix. We should really get to that and just go ahead and talk about it. LGZ is just jumping in, and I'm not going to subject her to the last second stuff, so I'm going to take care of the fix for you guys today. So without further ado, here is your fix for the week of June 18th. So today, it was announced that Disney, as expected last week, and like we talked about, submitted their bid for 20th Century Fox, their second bid. And this one, Bob Iger's going for the jugular here. The bidding war is definitely officially on. Disney officially responded with a much higher than anticipated offer of $71.3 billion of stock valuation along with cash. Fox wasted absolutely zero time accepting the offer, claiming it to be superior to Comcast's offer from last week. The big deal here is that many speculated that Disney was going to submit actually a smaller bid. At least that was lower in valuation, but just with a little bit of cash. But as I alluded to earlier, Disney CEO Bob Iger has opted to go for the jugular instead and came with a much more aggressive offer, putting stress on Comcast. Now, Comcast can still submit a counteroffer, but since they already were planning on being $59 billion in debt, trying to offer their first bid, one has to wonder if they'll risk, going even more into debt just to win. However, to quote Captain America, Disney can do this all day. And the next thing, Disney also had another surprise announcement. They're shelving all of the anthology films, and they're putting them on hold. This, of course, is due to the lackluster box office performance of Solo: A Star Wars Story, but this is largely about the reaction to The Last Jedi. Let's face it, The Last Jedi was a controversial film, and the impassioned fan reaction to it, and conversely, the appalling treatment of Star Wars actor Kelly Marie Tran, is symptomatic of fans' anger from that movie. Solo and other anthology films are now being made fall victim to fan outrage, but we'll debate this topic on tonight's episode, so make sure you stay with us and share all of your viewpoints. For months now, Marvel Comics has been building up to what they want to call the wedding of the century. Never mind that the wedding of the century was already used for Storm and Black Panther's wedding event almost 10 years ago. But the actual event, the actual big event really is Batman and Catwoman's wedding coming up next month. But that's not what we're here to talk about right now. No, the shocker is that Marvel leaked the surprise twist that happens at the end of X-Men Gold 30, which is on sale today. The twist being that Kitty Pryde actually backs out of marrying Colossus, leaving the door open for Gambit to pop the question and shotgun marry his long-term love, Rogue, at last. While Marvel decided to leak this news a day before the issue comes out, why Marvel decided to leak this news a day before the issue comes out is anyone's guess, but this will be sure to be a collector's item. If you haven't grabbed it yet, hit up your local comic shop as soon as possible tomorrow. That's going to follow up into a solo series for the newlyweds titled Mr. and Mrs. X. The cover image actually came out today, and it's actually it looks like it's going to be kind of cool. I'd be interested to see exactly what's going to transpire moving forward with both Rogue and Gambit. So be sure to pay attention to that. Now, on to some Star Trek news. It's rumored that Star Trek plans are about to be really expanded over at CBS. And since CBS has extended the contract of Star Wars Discovery co-creator Alex Kurtzman, who is rumored to be working on a project that may see the legendary Captain Jean-Luc Picard return in a brand new series. And this will, of course, take place in the Next Generations timeline, and it will be a continuation. This is something fans should take with a grain of salt, as there's no actual confirmation, but the rumor mill is swirling heavily after Patrick Stewart said he may have good reason to watch Star Trek Discovery very soon, as he had not yet made the offer to watch. And lastly, Amazon has ordered Robert Kirkman's Invisible comic for the animated series. And this is something that I was talking about months ago. The creator of The Walking Dead announced just yesterday that Amazon has ordered an animated series of his award-winning superhero comic, Invincible. Dubbed the world's greatest superhero comic, Invincible follows the adventures of Mark Grayson, the son of the greatest superhero on Earth, as he grows into his own journey as a hero. The Invincible comic series ended his run earlier this year, but it's finally remembered for its impactful storyline and visceral, gory action scenes, as you see right here on the screen. The series will be 8 episodes, with each episode being an hour long. All right, let's get to what's going to be coming out this week. This week is going to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 12, number 1. Tony Stark Iron Man, number 1. Another series for our favorite Armored Avenger. And as I told you a little bit earlier in the fix, X-Men Gold, number 30, which has that Kitty Pryde Colossus wedding twist. The new games out this week, new Gundam Breaker for PlayStation and for Xbox, and also The Lost Child coming out on PlayStation and the Switch. The only movie of noteworthy coming out this week is Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, and it doesn't exactly have the greatest reviews out there going for it. And on TV and streaming this week is, of course, Luke Cage Season 2, and that's coming out on Friday. And that is your fix for the week. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know exactly what you thought of all of the news items in the comments below. So, guys, of all the news stories that we covered this week, what kind of wet your whistle? What kind of got you guys going? What are you interested in?
Jurassic World getting bad reviews, or mixed rather?
Yeah. It's getting mixed reviews, man.
Wow. I wouldn't have called that.
They're all the same movie. I mean, it's not
really
at all. It's really not.
It's not really the same movie. Come on, man. Do better. It's not really the same movie. How can you say that?
At least 3 films in the series did their part in making scat mainstream. So
what?
Peculiar. Yeah.
Oh wow, you talking about that big old dump that Triceratops had? Come on. Well, really? Really? Come on, man.
It's like, yeah, like the Scheisse freaks, I think, really dig the Jurassic Park franchise. It's just what you don't get it in a lot of movies.
Okay, whatever you say. LGZ, what kind of got you hyped up on the news from the fix today?
I'm seriously interested to see what Comcast is going to come back with on the bidding war for Fox.
Yeah, now, I'm glad you brought that up because actually Q's talking about it in the chat. And he says, they can't do it all day. 90 billion may be too much to pay for Fox. Dude, no one said they're going to offer 90 million. And besides, they're offering all stock. It's not like they're offering their entire company. Comcast is pushing themselves towards like easy financial takeover territory by borrowing all that money. Like Disney's playing with house money. They're offering stock and cash. It's not like they're offering just straight cash and they're really kind of like hurting themselves. No, they're still maintaining control of their company. And with the stock valuation of Disney rising with every single announcement that comes out, no, I think they're in good shape. Honestly, I think they're in good shape. What do you say to that, LGZ?
You know what? I'm gonna stick with my original position. I'm trying to see what's gonna happen because it just seems as this escalates and gets higher and higher that a lot of things are gonna change and people are just not gonna. I don't know how if the deal's gonna go through. Just who with and what it takes is gonna be something interesting to see.
Okay. Eric, I actually haven't heard you weigh in on all of this before. What's your take on the Disney Fox Comcast bidding war thing?
Well, it kind of almost seems like Disney's going to win now, and I know people are rooting for that to happen for the simple fact that they want all Marvel characters under one umbrella, and we've also learned that no matter who wins the bidding war, it looks like Disney might get those characters anyway because Comcast could just end up selling them to them, just to, get the extra pocket change. But I kind of have to see it also from the point of view that many people in Hollywood don't want Disney to acquire Fox because they think it's going to create a monopoly and stifle creativity, and I can see that.
Man, come on, man. I don't buy that for a second. Go ahead and finish.
I'm also concerned what it means for the X-Men if they were under Disney's umbrella. I mean, I certainly hope that, Dark Phoenix doesn't have any cliffhangers and it is a conclusion to that franchise if need be. I just hope, Deadpool is able to stay on course. But the thing is, I'm worried about, and I'm in the minority of this, but look at it from this point of view. I'm not totally exuberant about how Disney would possibly handle certain characters because I don't want to see the X-Men in an action comedy, and I don't care if the costumes are more on point, because if everyone releases that first picture and it's got Wolverine in a yellow spandex suit, they're going to say, oh, they finally gave us the X-Men we wanted. But I don't know. I'm someone who likes more serious, straight-faced, dramatic narrative storytelling. And since 2011, by and large, I've liked Fox's X-Men and Deadpool movies more than I've liked what Disney's put out. After Marvel Phase 1, I've liked 6 of their movies. So I know I'm in the minority here, but I don't put my geek blinders on when it comes to deciding what makes a good movie.
No, I mean, look, I understand what you're saying as far as the narrative that may be presented. Being the X-Men being in an action comedy, I can understand that concern. Okay, I get that. However,
for Deadpool it works though.
Deadpool it works because that's who he is. But as far as the X-Men goes, it might not work as well, and I give you that. Okay, but
we finally got a superhero movie that made a glory hole joke. But okay, go
right. But I mean, but I get you. I get you here with that. And that's not to say that the Fox or that the X-Men would be handled in that fashion just because the Avengers movies were that way and Guardians of the Galaxy was that way. I mean, and Spider-Man was that way. I mean, yeah, precedent may have been set, but I mean, could there be more diversity as far as like instead of them all just being action comedies? Sure, but at the same time, let's not lose sight of, these movies are supposed to be fun and epic and stuff like that. Not everything needs to be super serious. I mean, some people, were very surprised how dark Infinity War got in its in his narrative as far as like how Thanos, you know, was just basically hell bent on doing what he felt like he wanted to do, and damn the consequences, no matter who gets in the way or who has to die. You know, some people were surprised by that, and it is a good surprise. I think there's room for that. So we'll see. We'll see. Any response to anything that Eric has said, Fallen Marvel or LGZ?
Me personally, I'll look at it this way. If they essentially acquire X-Men, they can't get any worse. Like at this point, it's like if them get incorporated in MCU, they can't get any worse than what they've already been, because even looking at some of the dynamics with X-Men as a franchise, yes, you have your seasoned characters that are a bit more seasoned, like your Wolverine, your Cyclops, your Hank McCoy, and so on and so forth. But you also have like the younger generation dynamic that kind of adds to that kind of has like a bit of a humorous feel to it. Now they could probably still go more or less a Winter Soldier route with X-Men, as far as like the whole tone of it, which honestly would work because that's, you know, it's damn like almost all, well, a good portion of the good X-Men movies were pretty much damn near political dramas themselves almost. So I think like if they decide to go that route with it, I mean, I think it could work. I honestly really don't think they're just going to just make X-Men an action comedy, because obviously everybody in X-Men aren't like humorous characters. So I don't see them doing it, honestly.
Any last comments before we move on?
No, not really. I'm just interested to see what happens.
Okay, fair enough. All right, guys. So, Fallen Marvel actually wrote a piece on the website today talking about fandoms and their toxicity. Is titled "Dear Fandoms, Toxic Fans Are Your Responsibility." So I'm gonna turn it over to him and actually, you know, have him kind of open the segment talking about fan toxicity. So what brought us here to talking about this today, Fallen Marvel?
Well, honestly, just a lot of interaction online, some responses to movie reviews I may have had, or just interaction with just different people. And it's something that I feel over the years that I think we've taken for granted when it comes to fandoms, because it's one of the things I address to where it's like, as fans within the fandoms, like, yeah, we know we have the trolls and the, you know, the toxic people, whatever, and we kind of just figure that, like, you know, they don't represent the whole fandom, you know, that they don't speak for the whole fandom and all that or whatever. But the thing is, the problem, because we kind of take that somewhat of a diplomatic route, it kind of allowed them to flourish within the fandom, because regardless of what anyone wants to say or admit, they still are representing the fandom, and they're not helping the fandom at all. And Star Wars as a fandom essentially is the best the best fandom to examine right now, as of recent events. Of course, the whole harassment of Kelly Marie Tran, and you know, and, you know, obviously other speculation of how, you know, they've run Daisy Ridley off social media, you know, of course, belligerent fans, like, you know, sending George Lucas death threats, you know, back in the day or whatever. You know, it gets to a point to where, as a community, like, because fandoms are a community. That's how I look at it. As a community, you are essentially responsible for how you want the fandom to be represented. And I don't think that as a community, they don't do enough about the toxic members. And that's kind of like one of the things I wanted to address, because there's a lot of things I'm a fan of, and there's a dark side to each one. And with me being a Star Wars fan, not a hardcore fan, but I'm still a Star Wars fan, and as long as I have been, it's like recent events kind of made me ashamed to be a Star Wars fan. And I don't want to feel that with my love. So
right, I hear you. So here's the question we want to ask. How in the world did we get here? Like, you know, why is it so serious? Why is everybody like really just getting so upset? LGZ, I want your comments first. What, how did we get here? Like, what brought us to this point?
Well, I mean, I guess it's like a myriad of reasons. So, you know, you have to take into the fact that, you know, everybody has different opinions about, you know, what they think something is going to be or not going to be. I mean, as far back as I can remember, you know, you're talking about, you know, movies, television, you know, comics. Every time they change something, especially for me, I notice a lot of stuff that's, you know, more racial. So it's just like when they change a character that is not white, or, you know, doesn't matter what ethnicity the person is. If it's a non-white person, there's always some type of uproar. And you know, and it's just kind of like, well, wait a minute, you know, what are we talking, you know, what's going on here? I mean, just think about when the Hunger Games came out, and the young girl, I can't remember the character's name. Rue, yeah, Rue was a little black girl, and it was just like, oh my God, it was so much racist stuff and so much derogatory things, and it's just like, you know, it's a kid, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even like the Nick Fury situation, right? When they casted him as Samuel Jackson, that was a big deal. Like, I mean, it's just doesn't matter. It just seems like there's a lot of, you know, when I don't know if it's just because, you know, people just expect everything to be, you know, white or whitewashed. I don't know. Maybe that, like, maybe a lot of people feel there's no room for other ethnicities, or, you know, saying different, you know, people of different races to be in those character slots. But I mean, it's really just shown the ignorance, I guess, of the community as a whole, because, you know, we have so many people that go against it, and it's just like, you know, yeah, we have people that speak out against the racism, but I mean, it's not enough, because this continue to still goes on, and these are the biggest people that, you know, buy the merchandise and support, and, you know, it's just it's really just I don't know, it's really just gotten ugly.
Yeah, it has very much gotten ugly. Eric Joseph.
Yeah, for me, it's basically a lot of people, you know, by and large, human beings are herd animals. They find something to identify with. And whether it be a type of fandom, whether you give someone DC, Marvel, politics, or religion, they're going to find ways to tear each other apart over it, because people, I mean, if you feel strongly enough about something, but people don't know where to draw the line and be civil, and they also confuse these things with a sense of identity. I mean, even I've seen it, you know, people with school spirit. I mean, yeah, it's nice to, you know, have pride in whatever school you're going to, but, you know, some people don't realize, hey, in 4 years this is all over and not going to matter or whatever. But people really need to, you know, sit back and, like, right now we have 4 geeks in a chat. There are movies we all like. There are movies each of us don't like. Like, during the time I wasn't able to appear on the show, hell, Kenshiro knows I'm someone who flat out hated Infinity War, but I have my valid reasons. And people saw it on Facebook. I had people unfriend me because I didn't like Infinity War. I mean, when you get right down to it, it's just a movie, you know? And just because I didn't like Infinity War and I don't plan on, you know, seeing it again or getting it on Blu-ray, I'm still going to see Avengers 4 because, hey, I might like that one. I mean, there are certain things, like, okay, for instance, I hate pretty much what I've seen of movies directed by Rob Zombie, so I don't plan on seeing movies directed by him again. But sometimes a good enough trailer can convince me to give something a second chance. Like, okay, different thing, I didn't care for the first Ant-Man movie, but the trailers for Ant-Man and the Wasp give me the hint that, hey, they're really tapping into how these heroes' powers could be used well in a movie. And I think this movie looks cool and it'll be a fun superhero movie. So I'll see it. Maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. But there are certain things that, you know, allow me to give things a second chance. But I don't know. Toxic fandom exists everywhere, and the whole Star Wars thing, I'm not a Star Wars guy, but I've also noticed how people get passionate about that. And when you get down to it, the only two movies in that whole franchise people seem to agree across the board on are A New Hope and Empire
Strikes Back. Yep.
That's it. So you have how many other movies that are essentially divisive?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the Solo thing in a way doesn't totally surprise me. I didn't think it was going to open that low because at least it had Star Wars. I mean, it wasn't going to do mainline series numbers just because, you know, it's a spin-off. But people, you know, had problems with someone other than Harrison Ford being in the role, and I get that. But people, Disney, everyone said I was crazy when I brought up this thing called Star Wars fatigue. And I think that is also setting in. Because where people could argue that, hey, once you see a trailer with a lightsaber, people are going to lay down their money, you just found out that's not true. And since they came back, though, I mean, Force Awakens, sorry, the name was escaping me for a moment, was more well received than pretty much anything since the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, still kind of a divisive film, but the difference is where you're not seeing superhero fatigue as much is because even if Marvel Studios releasing 3 films a year,
mm-hmm.
those are 3 different movies a year.
Right.
They don't all have Star Wars in the name. And especially Solo came out not even a year after
a controversial Star Wars film. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Good point.
Yeah, and people are like, we just saw Star Wars. That's like back in the day. You remember how Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions were like 6 months apart? And W said, in retrospect, we should have put them a year apart because a lot of advertisers, because Reloaded, as you remember, was an advertising sensation. And everyone wanted in on that.
That's
but
true.
A lot of people didn't want a part of Revolutions. And that's what you have to give some things breathing room. And now maybe, you know, give these mainline movies, even I know they already have the date set for episode 9, but now maybe give them a few years to breathe. Because one of the things that was key to the Force Awakens success is because it had been so long since Revenge of the Sith.
No, you bring up a good point. I want to bring up a point that our friend Supreme in the chat brought up. He said these things have always had a toxicity to them. The internet has allowed these things to be more apparent. Additionally, people are now emboldened by this shield of calling these opinions free speech, which really just means hate speech. The internet has allowed us to lose those inhibitors of common sense. And that's a very great point, actually, very, very great point. Because when you're on the internet and you can hide behind pseudonyms or, you know, or avatars, and it's not really your name, your real name, and it's not really your real face, that are saying all of these things, it kind of gives you, makes you feel like you have carte blanche to say whatever you want, no matter how absolutely dickish it really comes across. You know, so, you know, when you have things like Kelly Marie Tran being chased off the internet, when you have, you know, what happened to Rue in the racism that goes there, the same thing with Finn, when Finn was first shown and people were like, what, a black stormtrooper, what? You know, and they were all so upset. It's just, it's unbelievable how these fans just feel so entitled to say whatever they want and feel like it's justified. You know, Fallen Marvel, your 2 cents.
Oh,
it's again, man, like this is the thing when it comes with people saying whatever they feel, and I believe I commented to someone that was saying how, you know, you have the whole free speech and I'm entitled to my opinion stuff or whatever. And you know, that's become an evasive tactic at this point, because I've seen a lot of ridiculous comments over the last year. Not that I'm new to them, but it's like I've heard some very ridiculous stuff. And I think the most ridiculous one that I've ever heard, and there's this particular person like still have never responded, but this person essentially said for whatever reason that Batman was stronger than Captain America. And I'm like, how? Please explain. Please explain. And but again, it's I've had other situations like that. Again, going back to Star Wars, I'm one of the people who liked The Last Jedi. I reviewed it on my channel. I gave it around like an 8, 8.5, something like that, I think. I can't really recall, but somewhere within that range. Of course, somebody found their way to my page and said something to the extent of Last Jedi was trash. I will never subscribe to your channel.
Okay.
Okay. I'm like, okay, all right.
Right.
But this is my thing, and I've been really thinking a lot on it because, again, I'm entitled to my opinion argument. It's been overused and overdone. It's stale, and at this point, I feel it no longer has any weight. And after thinking about it a lot, I'm at this point where I feel like people, especially now, you're no longer just entitled to your opinion. You are entitled to an opinion that has a argument with weight to it. It's really it's one of those things where it's like, at this point, it's like, yeah, it was a gray area, but now it's like people have kind of proven that unless you have a actual valid argument to back up what you're saying, and you're not just basing it off of what you feel, it's like you really don't have a leg to stand on in an argument if you're going in, well, I felt this movie was trash, or I thought it was trash. Like, why?
Explain, and then they can't explain, and they can't explain, and their argument falls apart, and then they start throwing barbs and names and at you because you're challenging their opinion, and you're poking holes in it. Those are the ones that that really kind of make things really bad. Eric, I knew you wanted to say something, so I'm gonna let you say that before we move on to the next part of the topic.
Yeah, I'll try and there are 2 points I'm going to rattle off quickly because Fallen Marvel made me think of another one. One, I was going to say, at least Ken Shiro knows the shit I get from Olicity fans when I write about Arrow sometimes. Because
you said Olicity?
Anyone can look at my social media pictures, and I'm either cosplaying as the Green Arrow, or now I'm actually in my Green Arrow costume standing next to Stephen Amell. So, which was the goal if I ever got to meet him. So, but yeah, just because I'm not an Olicity shipper, I've had people say, I'm not a fan of the show, or I've obviously never seen an episode. It's like, hey, click that Twitter link next to my byline and take a look at me. Or, I've seen things on Twitter like saying like, oh, Eric Joseph and those comic book boys or whatever. And it's like, people are still using comic book as a dirty word. Like, they'll like the movies and TV shows, but it's still anathema to like comic books. It's like, where do you think this stuff comes from? That is the source material. Like, when I interviewed Kirk Acevedo, who plays Ricardo Diaz, back at Motor City Comic Con, he said in season 7, he wants Ricardo Diaz to kill one of the big 3 on Arrow, and the first name that popped in my mind was Felicity, and he said that's his goal. So fans on Twitter had nasty things to say about him and me, the guy who wrote the article.
Dude, and it's they're shooting the messenger. Come on, what is that? They're shooting the messenger.
The guy just has pride in his craft.
Yeah.
If he wants his character to achieve certain things, what's wrong with that? But learn also to separate actors from the characters they play, because they're not the same person. Because Kirk Acevedo, he plays this really vile guy on Arrow, and then if you see him in person, he's got a smile on his face like all the time. He was like the happiest looking guy in the entire Suburban Collection showplace that whole weekend. We were like, how do you do the 180? But yeah, it's ridiculous. And I clicked on one of these people's profiles on Twitter, and everything of them, of course, they can't show their real face.
Of course not.
Everything was something having to do with Emily Bett Ricards, and I mean nothing against the actress personally. I'm sure she's a nice person. But, everything, it was like stuff like even with her lifting weights in the gym, and it's like, okay, obviously someone is obsessed with this Felicity character to the point where they're obsessed with Emily Bett Ricard. So obviously starting any kind of conversation with them is pointless because they're too far gone. But another thing, what was actually, we talked briefly about Black Lightning before the show began, and when I reviewed the premiere itself, that was the most popular review I'd written, and it now became eclipsed by Batman Ninja, which was the nastiest review I've ever given to anything. I gave that 1 out of 5 stars because WordPress wouldn't let me go any lower than 1 star. But yeah, I hated Batman Ninja, and I had my complaints about it as a film. But anime fans, one thing I noticed, and I don't mean to get, sidetracked, the conversation about that fandom, but, we're talking about toxicity here. There are 2 cards, and they seem to be the only 2 cards in the deck. Whenever you have anything bad to say about anime, they take it as an insult on the art form as a whole, and they're going to say, basically, that because you didn't like it, you have no understanding of Japanese history and culture. And I absolutely did get those complaints levied against me, and I'm sorry. That's just how it goes. But I don't have to know the entirety of Japanese history and culture to say a Batman movie was bad. And Batman's my favorite character. I'm judging something as a film alone, and that's how you have to understand it. If it's a bad movie, it's a bad movie, and I don't need to have a doctorate in Japanese history or anything. But yeah, that's always the complaint you get, or you're ignorant, you just don't understand it. It's like,
right.
Sorry, it's a bad movie, but maybe you guys have seen those complaints before, but it's funny because sometimes when I write a certain review or say something in an article where I might put a little bit of opinion, I know it's going to trigger certain responses, and it does happen.
Okay, you know what? Just to piggyback off what you said about that, like I'm trying to make it quick, but I'm one of the other ones that obviously I'm an anime fan. I thought Batman Ninja was ridiculous.
You're both wrong. You're both wrong.
So
no, you are not about to champion that thing. After you champion Batman vs Superman and that trash, are you serious?
No.
Are you serious?
Hey, here's the best thing. My poll quote on Rotten Tomatoes for Batman Ninja, I'm going to try and recite it verbatim, but the quote used on the site was, no joke, Batman Ninja makes Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin look like Mask of the Phantasm by comparison. I'm just glad that.
And you know what? I can't disagree with that. And the only other thing, too, is the comment about the Olicity thing. Had I known that you have written some on that, I would have applauded you a long time ago because I hate it too. And I know I've said this before. I don't know if I said it on air before, but I wanted Felicity dead since the end of season 3. So I'm just gonna leave it there.
Felicity,
so
man.
if they follow through with it,
leave her alone. She ain't bothered nobody. Dang.
Felicity should have been dead. I will actually agree with both.
Y'all wrong, man.
No, I'm sorry. Ever since that whole mess when Oliver found out about his son and the way she acted with that, I'm sorry. No, there was no forgiving that.
She should have been dead when she got paralyzed. They should have shot her in the limo and killed her then. I don't even know what season that was.
Man, y'all ain't right. Y'all ain't right. So anyway, the next thing I wanted to bring up, which kind of leads into something that Supreme actually said also in the chat. Man, he's on the roll. He's got some really great comments today. The next one is, our fandom's responsible for the trolls, and I guess what Fallen Marvel means by that is, and Supreme even said in the chat. He said, let me scroll back up so I can read it. It's kind of a paragraph. People have every right to say what they want, however they want. But it becomes imperative for us, those people who are not only culture consumers but culture creators, to police ourselves, or each other. So if you see someone that says something or types something that is, that you feel is very harmful to the culture, you should call them out for it. That's what he's saying. Don't let them just use the cop out, that's my opinion. Because I mean, okay. I get into an argument back and forth with a guy on another Facebook group, those comic book guys. And his name's Kevin Molina, and he's pretty out there in his vitriol, his hate for Disney. And, I call him crazy all the time and, say that, he says some really ridiculous stuff, but he's always saying that the fans of DC movies should stop being so overly critical of DC movies, because then the Warner Brothers will stop making them. Now, I call him crazy because I think that's absolutely stupid, for him to think that our harsh criticism is going to make them stop making movies. They're going to keep making movies as long as they're making money. And so far they are making money. So they have no real imperative to stop. But he's saying that we're becoming toxic in the way that we're saying, oh, well, the directors and, are ruining these movies. But that's the truth. I mean, we're giving our opinion. We're not, the ones that are giving like Zack Snyder death threats, those guys are bad guys, but it's not necessarily trolling, giving an honest, valid opinion of where a film goes wrong and a desire to see them to do better. We all have different opinions on Batman vs. Superman. I may give LGZ a bunch of crap about her lighting Batman vs. Superman because I think she's wrong, but she's still welcome to her opinion. I disagree with it vehemently, but she's still welcome to her opinion. I'm not, calling her saying, she's crazy or she should, she's stupid for having her opinion. No, I respect her opinion. I just think it's wrong. So fandoms being responsible for the trolls, how should we go about doing that, you think, Fallen Marvel?
See, I have the thing is, ideally, it's again, it kind of goes back to, again, the community thing. And it's like you said, like when it comes to a select few or whatever that come along and do or say something that is harmful to said culture, then it's still like up to us that like want it to be presented in a better light, to call them out on it, not just to say like, even when like, again, we've gotten into like this whole PC era thing to where as long as they say it's my opinion, they could just say it, and not say it. They could just say it without being challenged on it, is what I'm saying. So the thing is that like it's gotten to a point where now I think people have gotten a bit afraid to challenge toxic behavior, and it's like even if a person necessarily has like a bit of a platform and all this, that, and the other, the thing is this, like, it's one of those things to where it's like, look, you have to be willing to challenge somebody for the sake of bettering the culture, and it's just been more of an issue to where we've kind of run into that roadblock to where like, oh, well, he just his opinion, he's going to just keep saying it, and then you move on. Now, I'm not saying that you have to like dedicate your whole life like attacking everybody that like whatever, but I just think that as a community, the ones that want better for the culture, like want to be seen in a better light, and it's like those of us, like, even if you don't agree or agree on, like, again, anybody that's considered an ally that wants to better the culture and not, what's the right word? I can't think of the word, but like basically anyone that does harm to the culture, I think I think it's something we need more of within fandoms. And I honestly, I really haven't been seeing it enough.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right about that, because let's move away from just even talking about just movies. It's extended to video games. It's extended to comic book readers. Like when you think about it, okay, like say for instance when Miss Marvel first came out and it was going to be the first Muslim main character of a comic book series, and a lot of people were upset because it was kind of like the Muslim Islamophobia was still kind of raging kind of high, and Marvel decided to make make this thing, and people, were getting mad about that. They were getting mad about Amadeus Cho becoming the Hulk. They were getting mad about Miles Morales becoming the pushed Spider-Man over Peter Parker, and people were like feeling threatened, like, their childhood or something was being taken away from them because, Marvel was trying to be more diverse. People like that, or when you go to the comic book store and, women like LGZ are accosted or saying that, hey, you don't read comic books, or they assume that, you have no knowledge of comic books because you're a woman or something like that. It's, stuff like that shows the toxicity in fandom, and it goes back to Supreme's earlier point about how toxicity in fandom has permeated for years, based off of, I don't know, about preconceived notions or things of that nature. LGZ, your comment. Hello. Don't leave me hanging, girl. Oh my goodness.
You muted.
You're muted. Don't leave me hanging. You muted your microphone.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm
right.
trying to get it to work.
There
okay.
we go.
All right.
So, yes, there is. I agree. There is, to big piggyback on what you just said. Yes, there is a thing, especially when it comes to women, being accosted, being attacked, being, kind of like almost, as devalued, I guess, in the culture because, these guys just don't want them to be there. I mean, but then, you also think not only does it happen, in online. I mean, there have been actually physical attacks of fans, saying in the news, in the last recent years, of people stabbing other people or something, like it gets crazy. And it's just like, okay, at what point does it begin to be too much, right? Like, so it's just, I mean, it's a lot of just, it gets ugly really fast and nobody says anything. And it's like, people are like, oh man, that's crazy. But nobody ever does anything. I mean, even like, do you guys know who Paul Kemp is? You guys know who Paul Kemp is, right? He's a guy he was like a Star Wars author or something. Just learned about him recently in researching for this show today. But even he is like saying, hey, the Star Wars fans are white supremacists and ain't shit. So like,
wow,
like, they know it.
Really, he said that?
Okay, yeah. Well, I saw that article.
Okay, so I'm just like, okay, and this was just a couple days ago. This was like in less than a week ago. So it's just like, okay, dang, these people like, and they know, but it's just like, okay, you think about all the Star Wars fans, but they keep making movies, so they're like, I don't want to say coddling, but I mean, they have to make money, but it's just like, reinvigorating that racist fan base to continue to be racist because they want to make money. Like, it's kind of a weird thing, and it's like, where do we draw the line? Like, where do we stop? I mean, where do we say, okay, enough is enough, or because it's not solely on us as consumers to be like, hey, you need to stop this and finger pointing. But the big people, the actual studios that own these properties and that write this stuff, they need to be like, hey, we don't tolerate this kind of stuff. And when they see stuff on their articles or whatever, they need to ban these people or do whatever, whether they be content creators. I mean, even YouTube channels do the same thing. Like YouTube creators as well, they also attack fans and stuff. I mean, and it's all racist tirades. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, what was that guy that was like a big story on PewDiePie? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah. That was crazy. It's just like, but you know what? Even though they did that, they exposed it, he's still making his money doing his thing. Like nobody, like there was nothing like, oh, he lost everything. Nope, he's still doing his thing. So it's like
he got kicked off. He got kicked off of being a YouTube, I guess a YouTube partner or something like that. But he still has his fans. He can still make money, and I guess that is exactly what you're alluding to, correct?
Yes.
Is that okay? Yeah, guys like PewDiePie, and there's a couple of other YouTubers that are just outright racist just because, let's extend it also going back to let's go back to comics, talking about not comics, video games, Gamergate, the whole thing with people getting really mad about female representation, and there's more female leads. I mean, like, people weren't mad when Samus was revealed to be a woman, and I'll get to you in just 1 second, Eric. I'm sorry. The whole thing with Samus was fine. Laura Croft was fine, but then, you know, now we're starting to see a shift where there's more, you know, female representation, less over sexualization of some of these characters, and people are some certain segments of the fandom are getting really angry in about that, and, you know, trying to shout down female game designers and things of that nature. Eric, what's your point you wanted to get in? I'm sorry.
Okay, before I get to the point, let's just state the obvious. If superheroes don't encapsulate your ideals of sexism and racism, then maybe you shouldn't be reading about them, because I think you're missing the point of these characters. I think that's what some people overlook. If you don't want to see a black Green Lantern or whatever, I think you're really missing the point of, you know, what these characters are all about. I mean, Superman fought the Klan, you know, in the old radio serials. I mean, you don't see Superman lighting crosses with his heat vision. I'm sorry, that's just not the type of character he is. But, you know, getting to, you know, the points like LGZ and Fallen Marble and you were making, yeah, I've noticed firsthand, like, the harassment women get, you know, at conventions and in stores, and I think it's a product of people's own inadequacies, hatred, and rejections projected outward, because a lot of these trolls are maybe people who got one too many wedgies in high school, and now they're a total pussy and have to hide behind a keyboard. But when they work up the courage to actually say something bad to somebody, it comes out very stupid, but it does hurt feelings. But, you know, it's usually these guys that are, you know, 3 bills plus or whatever, with, you know, the neck beard and whatnot. And it's like they'll say these off the cuff remarks. Like, one time a few years ago, I was at a shop for free comic book day, and a girl was dressed as Zatanna, and he's like, "Do you even know who Zatanna is?" And she's like, "Yes." And I'm just thinking the obvious: if she didn't know who Zatanna was, why would she be dressed as a character who's not really known to the mainstream? If she was just doing whatever, she'd be wearing that Batgirl costume from Party City that Batgirl's never worn in any cartoon, comic, or movie. And furthermore, you know, someone wearing it might not even know who Batgirl is. I mean, I'm not saying that to, you know, be a broad generalization, but that's like, if someone's dressed up as a certain character, I'm guessing they know who they're dressed up as. But, you know, it's kind of sad, you know, what, you know, some people have to go through at conventions, and, you know, especially, you know, with negative comments online allow you that certain anonymity and protection. Like, I was out at dinner yesterday with a local female cosplayer. You know, she had told me about some bad experiences she had, because, I mean, these girls, they don't even ask for it, and a guy won't even say hi before sending a dick pic on Facebook.
I mean, that's honestly, unfortunately, that's sexism in general. LGZ could talk for days probably about that.
But yeah, whatever happened to hi, or discussing things you have in common with someone? And then what's the logic behind having an attractive woman dressing as a character you like? Why does that make you angry? I don't
think it makes them angry. I think that makes them think, you know, it makes them go back to their own perverted thoughts, you know.
Yeah, it's their own inadequacies that maybe that they didn't, you know, get a certain girl in high school. This is a girl they won't get, so they're gonna react to her in an aggressive way. And hey, sometimes you never know. Like, in recent years, we've seen the rise of the beta male. It's like, I've seen how many situations of how did he get her, and, you know, sometimes, you know, if you talk to the prettiest girl in the room because other guys are afraid to talk to her, it might work in your favor. I mean, I might sound a little scatterbrained in the points I'm making here, but yeah, it's, I don't know.
LGZ, you got any comments to follow up with what Eric's talking about? Come on, unmute your mic. Come on, unmute your. There you go.
All right. No, this loaner computer is starting.
We're gonna have to put some kind of push to talk button thing on your thing. I mean, come on. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, yeah. No, this and he's right. Like, the sexism is like a real issue. And I mean, and there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we've heard over the years how these, how guys are always attacking female writers, female creators, female, just anything that has to do with non-white male is like attacked no matter what. And I think that's like a very, very big issue. Like I said, the sexism is this whole other thing. And yes, I could talk about 10 hours on that, but we don't have enough time. But I mean, like, again, I should not, me personally, as a consumer, should not be the voice of reason for all of the racist, sexist assholes that are in the communities. I mean, but again, I think if by having, communities, I guess more integrated communities. I mean, because to be honest with you, I was on a group on Facebook that was like a majority white that had to do with comics and, saying and anime and stuff like that. And even those people, they don't even police their own people. It's crazy. It's like, okay, somebody can say the N-word or, something like that, and they won't even correct it in their community. So of course, a person like me is not going to be welcome or feel safe in that community.
Right.
So of course I'm jumping somewhere else. But I mean, again, we have, like, everybody has to do their part. But, I mean, nobody could come into the Culture Junkie Nation and say something blatantly racist and you're going to let it fly. Like,
no, they cannot.
That's not going to happen. That's what I'm saying. Like, we know that that's not going to happen, right? But I mean, there are also spaces where they can go and do that and get away with it, and nobody's going to say anything. And if we report them to Facebook, Facebook's going to say, "Hey, that doesn't violate our terms of service." Right?
Yeah, that bothers the hell out of me. I'm be honest. That, yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's crazy.
Yeah, go ahead.
And the thing is, it's just, I mean, me bringing this up in general is a slippery slope, and I understand that, but
why so?
Why?
Why do you feel like it's slippery slope?
Well, because it's an idealistic view. And the thing is, it really seems that when it comes to at least asserting an ideal, something that you feel might benefit the group as a whole, some people take exception that because they don't. It's like now, it's like nobody really believes in ideals too much anymore when it comes to that, and it's like I don't know whether they feel like it's too much work or they don't want to associate themselves with the or just feel like that they are associated with the bad fans or whatever. I mean, you can say that, but the thing is, from the outside looking in, it's always going to be guilty by association. So it's like a lot of folks that say, like, well, I can't be responsible for such and such. The thing is, like, they take that the idea and they think, like, well, like, I'm not responsible for this person or whatever. But you know
what? In that regard, I think that speaks to society in general. Now, I mean, look at where we are politically in the world, right? Racists are emboldened. They, people, they voted for our current president because they say, oh, well, he speaks his mind and doesn't care what anybody says. Like, that is supposed to be something to aspire to. Like, you say whatever's on your mind, to hell with you offending someone or you being, you being rude or you being, just out and out racist. Oh, you spoke your mind, so that should be something that's applauded. No, I mean, there should still be a sense of decorum, how you carry yourself, how you show respect to the fellow human, regardless of whether you think, people are, and someone said this in the chat, something about, this is, let me scroll back and find it. Comfortability and prejudice is something that Chris Ellen actually mentioned. And he's absolutely right, because when people are comfortable with being, who they want to be as far as like, as far as like being an absolute jerk, you know, like, oh, I don't care what you know, I'm gonna say whatever I feel like, you know, and the hell with what, you know, what you have to say, you know, about anything. You know, your feelings are your feelings. I'm gonna say whatever I feel, no matter how you feel. You know, that type of thing. Just being a jerk just because you want to be a jerk. I mean, we're no longer civil to one another, like in society at all. Like everybody, it's this me generation where all that matters is you, yourself, and I, or basically, in a way.
Yeah.
Yes, people should, you know, Chris Ellen is saying people shouldn't, you know, aspire to be, you know, unbridled. Just being a jerk, just to be a jerk. Eric, your comments.
Yeah, I was gonna say a perfect way we can bring this full circle, and we were kind of, you know, talking about this before the show, and actually I mentioned at the beginning, we can kind of bring this PSA full circle, you know, in superhero terms. I urge everyone to go out and buy this on Blu-ray next Tuesday. Black Lightning Season 1. I received my review copy recently, and I'm reworking my way through the season and still have bonus features to watch and everything. But it's a show I loved, you know, on the air and watched week to week. But, you know, if you're not going to check out a superhero because he's black, I mean, that's your own problem. But as I've said on this show before, when we talk Black Panther, simply a badass superhero is a badass superhero. And it shouldn't matter black, white, male, female, or, you know, Corrugarian.
Corrugarian, gay or straight, because honestly, one of my favorite characters on a maligned show, Supergirl, is Alex Danvers, because, and I liked her because she was a badass. You know, this was before she turned, you know, became lesbian or anything like that. Or you bring it back to comics, one of my favorite characters is Batwoman. She's an, you know, outright lesbian. I shouldn't necessarily, you know, like her or anything like that, but I find her as a character to be incredible. I like her a lot. So really, it shouldn't matter what label you put on someone. Just like them for who they are, you know?
Yeah, and here's the thing. The show tackles, you know, with modern social issues and stuff head on. But the thing is, and I had the fortune of meeting and interviewing lead actor Cress Williams last month at Motor City Comic Con, and I told him in my initial review of the show before it premiered, I said, you know, the relevance of this show extends beyond ethnicity. Yes, it may, you know, speak to a certain demographics first and foremost, but I told them, as someone, you know, who grew up in inner city Detroit, you know, I've seen what crime, you know, gang violence looks like, and even some of that stuff, you know, spills into the suburbs. And he really got what I was saying, and I think he was touched by seeing, you know, how the show still reaches various people in different ways. So, you know, maybe someone like me, you know, with that background can relate to the show in that certain respect. But also, you know, it's also a family show, and with those social issues, you're obviously, if you're not of a certain ethnicity, you're not going to be able to, you know, look at things totally from that perspective. But if you watch a show like this, you're going to be able to understand someone's perspectives better, if you know what I mean. And if you don't give it that chance, you're not going to. And if you're just going to say, I'm not going to watch them because you know, black precedes the lightning, I mean, that's why, you know, you're going to continue to have these kinds of arguments. So, and right now it is one of the better DC shows out there. So
without question, Black Lightning is definitely that deal. So like Eric says, do go and pick up the DVD if you haven't had a chance to see it, or if you have Netflix, go ahead and watch it streaming on Netflix right now. Let's move to the next version, next post on this topic. What are the worst fandoms that are out there? Honestly, obviously we can name Star Wars as being one of the worst as far as like their vitriol and how they treat fans and how they treat each other. But you know, what are some of the top 5 worst fans out there, would you guys say?
Anything Marvel versus DC.
Okay, but see, that's not exactly, well, no, I take that back. No, I take that back. I think you might be right. Now upon further,
well, essentially that essentially just means a comic book community. in a way.
Yeah,
Like,
I guess you could say.
so,
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's of course there's those ones that read, you know, Dark Horse or read Image, and they aren't necessarily a part of that discussion. So I don't want to use a blanket statement and say it's the comic book community as a whole, but you know, strictly Marvel versus DC, you know, whether it be about Marvel has better movies or TV has or DC has better TV shows, which is debatable, or whether it be about DC's has better games. I mean, people get really nasty.
Yeah,
with, you know, what they're talking
Marvel
about.
versus DC is bad, and I think the difference is, and I say this as someone who likes both but prefers DC. DC fans approach things from a level of intellectual superiority, where Marvel fans approach things as religious zealots, because Marvel's a religion. There's no way around it.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
really? Wow, really?
I
don't know. I wouldn't.
Wow. How did I know you was gonna say that? How did I know you was gonna say that? Ugh.
I mean, look, I've seen some pretty bad Marvel fans, but not to the extent where I think
the religious zealots. Come on
that,
now.
I mean,
come on now.
If that's the case, that ought to like apply to Batman fans alone.
Man, my man, you ain't never lied. Good Lord.
Because I mean, like, again, like I'm a person that enjoys both brands. It primarily shifted from DC to Marvel over the years, but I still have enjoyment out of both brands, you know. But again, it's just like when it kind of goes to that whole thing where people want to root for their team and all this, that, and the other. And it, like, again, like folks, they'll ride for it so hard to the point where it's like, dude, like, what is wrong? Like, it's like who made you like this? Like, what is going on? You know,
but like I said, the difference is, like, DC fans, if you don't like something, you know, they'll say you obviously don't understand it. Like, also, like L, you know, I like Batman versus Superman, but I don't think it's the greatest thing to even happen to DC films. But you know, people say, you know, they confuse complexity with, you know, intellectualism. And sorry, Batman versus Superman is not Jean Baudrillard's simulacra and simulation. It's not that hard to understand. In fact, it's Dark Knight Returns Cliff Notes in a way. So yeah, there's no reason to say someone's stupid because they don't like something. I mean, there are some cases in life where that's true, but we're not here to talk about that or race specifics. But yeah, it's like I'll cite the example again. I had at least 3 people unfriend me on Facebook over saying I didn't like Infinity War. It's a movie. Yeah.
Like that's wild. Like, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely loved Infinity War. You know, and again, I've talked to like a couple of people that said that like they had an issue with it, with this, that, and the other. Some of it was a bit aesthetic of the time, you know, whatever. You know, some folks said Thanos was soft, and I'm like, how is he soft? Because this, that, and the other. And I'm like, but you acting like the man was like devoid of emotion, and he's not. Like, he shows a lot of emotion in the comic books, you know, even then. But again, it's like you have to like let them know, it's like, look, okay, I get that you don't like it, but you do understand that like they had to adapt it in a way to where it still grabs the audience's attention. Like 9 times out of 10, if they went the original route, that probably would have lost a lot of people, you know. But you know, again, it's, you know, it kind of goes back to what I think King you had said earlier, like how like that kind of just says a lot to the societal thing, and like the how they approach things, to where it's like, you know, they just do them or whatever, and you don't think no mind. So, you know, again, like somebody kind of responded to me just now about like what I thought, and they pretty much said that I have too much faith in personal power to affect and influence people. And I kind of think about that, and it's like, but don't negative people kind of do that? So why couldn't we do on the opposite spectrum then? You know, like
Yeah.
Do you need me to cuss them out? Because I can.
Go
say
ahead.
what?
I said, do you need me to cuss them out? They're not going to come for you like that.
Oh, it's cool. I expected it. Like, again, anytime you come to anybody with like an idealistic point of view, you're always going to have naysayers. So I'm not surprised by it one bit. So, you know, I mean, I put out without, it just is what it is. But, you know, again, at the same time, it's like that's what you run into. But I think like when it kind of goes to like bad, like as far as fandoms though, I mean, we essentially have Star Wars fans. We already got that. And we said comic book fans. Honestly, like next in line is, if not on par, like I definitely would say video gamers. Like gamers, like it doesn't, like even if you like, even within gaming, like if you look at certain genres, like you have uh, uh, first person shooter players, you have your fighting game community, and so on and so forth, man. But I mean, we've seen how ugly it can get within the gaming community. Just from console wars alone. You
Right.
know?
I agree. Yeah. I agree. It definitely, I mean, even, and I think that's a bigger problem only because now the people that are playing video games are younger and younger. So the vitriol that people spit, especially in those, you know, games where like you can play on the internet and stuff like that, it gets, you know, my nephew was, you know, called the N-word repeatedly and just, you know, and it was just like, well, crazy. And we were just sitting there like, are they serious right now? But like, the vitriol gets, you know, spit, and these kids are young. I mean, my nephew he's 13 now. So I mean, when this happened, this was like maybe a year or two ago. So I mean, what kid is like excited to play a video game only to run into something like that?
Right. And that's crazy because you think about like if we take it back to what the early 90s during like the, you know, the Genesis and SNES roar. You don't remember anybody coming at you like that if you were either pro Genesis or pro SNES. You know, it was still a bit of a rivalry there, but it wasn't to the point where like you were just dogging them because like they played on the other thing or whatever the case may be. Now, maybe I was just too young at the time to really think about that. But just for me personally, it's like I've never seen it get bad to this extent, to whereas it's like, okay, example, we know Xbox and PlayStation, like we already know like those brands are always constantly going against each other. And the funny thing is like the silently, like Nintendo fans are usually pretty silent, but low key they can be just as malicious too, just because they kind of have that. It's kind of like what Eric was saying, like about how DC fans kind of have like that superiority thing going. Nintendo kind of has that too,
and they literally should have no leg to stand on as far as like them trying to be superior to anything. Because more likely their systems are almost a generation behind in terms of power. Like, so them being superior, what? Just because they come out with they have a Zelda game, they have a Mario game, or they have Smash Brothers. Like, I'm supposed to be impressed by that? Please get out of here. I don't want to hear that.
Funny, you know what they always go back to anytime you bring any criticism toward Nintendo, you know what they always go back to? Oh, well, they saved the home consoles back in the 80s.
Man, I don't want to hear. Okay. Man, please, though. I don't want to hear that.
It's like, and it's like, look, and Nintendo as a company, look, I will say this: they know how to cater to their fan base.
They do.
They do. They absolutely do. But at the same time, it's like, look, pretty much all the fan bases, like, again, have issues. But like, the thing is, I just think that like Nintendo more so than the others are really kind of like in this bubble a little bit, like the hardcore Nintendo fans, they're in a very tight knit bubble, you know. And Nintendo, the company knows that, so
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's in a way it's kind of a three-way thing now. I mean, I'm not as into the video gaming thing as I once was, but it used to be Sega versus Nintendo, and now it's Sony versus Microsoft with, Nintendo sitting in the corner and no one wants to play with him. But that's just pretty much how it is. Sorry, but I haven't had interest since the GameCube, because that was the last console worth playing in my view.
Oh, but you're gonna get that Resident Evil 2 remake. I know you are, aren't you?
That's what I was going for. Resident Evil 2 is getting me back in the game, and honestly, right now it's looking like I'm going to get an Xbox One, Xbox One S, because it'll be the cheaper of the two consoles. I might even get it used, so it's like $200 because hey, face it, my rent is getting raised as of next month when I renew my lease, so spending several $100s on a console, it's something I want to do, but it's not priority. But Resident Evil 2 is a priority because it's been a love of mine for 20 years now. But yeah, so I guarantee I have to guarantee myself some way of playing that. And then, in the meantime, there's a handful of games I can catch up on that are now pretty cheap because, they're all like 20 or under used. But yeah, I mean, if PlayStation 4 was the cheaper option, I'd go with it. I just wouldn't go with a Switch because it doesn't have the games I want to play. But yeah, brand loyalty is not really a thing with me when it comes to gaming because I've gone different ways in the various generations. Like when it came, to the Xbox 360, PS3 era, the reason I went 360 mainly was because, okay, a lot of the games I was looking forward to were multi-platform, but at the time, what became Splinter Cell Conviction was going to be an Xbox exclusive. And I'm a big Splinter Cell fan, and I didn't want to miss out on that. Like, at first, I was wondering if Resident Evil 2 was going to be a Sony exclusive because they announced it at the Sony, press conference. But later the night, they said, it's on Xbox One and PC. But had that happened, yeah, I would be getting a PS4 because, I've long said the day they confirm that Resident Evil 2 remake and dust off those We Do It shirts from 2 years ago, that's going to be the day I make my console decision. So, yeah, I mean, people can fight all they want, but sometimes, there's people like me that are just in it objectively or from a utilitarian standpoint. But yeah, I don't see yeah, I'm sure one console might be slightly more powerful than another, or if I get an Xbox, yeah, I'm going to lament the fact that I can't play Detroit, is it Become Human, whatever the subtitle is, because I mean, not only is it cool to have, this, kind of geographically accurate, futuristic version of Detroit, but Indigo Prophecy was one of my favorite games of all time, and I've missed every single Quantic Dream game since after they went Sony exclusive. But hey, Resident Evil is, especially, that one's near and dear to me because 2 is what got me in the series to begin with. So, there are just certain things that are special to you, and software trumps hardware for me.
Yeah, and that's why, as a gamer myself, that's why I kind of come in like it's just like again, I don't really get so caught up in what the machines themselves and what they can do, whatever. I'm about like, okay, what are the games though? Like that's my thing. Grant, I own pretty much both Microsoft and Xbox. I wanted to try Nintendo, but it's been about like almost 2 years since it's like a year and a half since the Switch has come out. I still have no reason to get one yet. So, but still, it's like my whole thing is what games can I play for this? And for me, if it's not enough of them, like I can't see the justification to getting the system for it. Like that's how I go. That's how I go with it. So it's like even with the Xbox One and PS4, like I think I waited probably like a year, almost 2 years before I got either one of them. Like roughly about like a year. I usually wait a year after they come out to see whether or not I really want to get it or not. And it's like for me as far as like the brand, the brand repping, all that. Like honestly, I feel it's gotten way worse than it's ever been.
Yeah, I get you, man. I get you. So here's the last thing we're going to talk about before we break out of here. What complaints are we tired of hearing the most?
Ooh, I know the one I always hear the most, and I guess again it kind of ties back to the Star Wars thing. I'm tired of hearing they saying that Rian Johnson killed the Star Wars franchise. I'm so tired of hearing that. Like, he did not murder a whole franchise. He may have done something y'all don't approve of, but it's far from dead. It's like you were thinking way too highly of his ability to kill an entire franchise. Yeah. I mean, the only time it's ever really happened was probably Joel Schumacher with Batman and Robin. But
valid, very
since
valid.
then, it hasn't really happened to that extent. I mean, well, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not
well,
true.
The complaint I'm tired of hearing is that I'm tired of hearing people say that. Well, I'm tired of the one complaint I'm tired of hearing people saying that the argument that if DC films are so smart that you didn't understand them, and if you didn't understand them, then you didn't read comics. I'm tired of hearing that one. That one I'm so tired of hearing. You know,
that was a wonderful argument. That was been a wonderful argument for like the first couple of months.
Oh man, I mean they swore up and down Batman vs Superman was like the most brilliant, smart film that anybody had ever come out with, and if you dared to disagree with them, they would attack your intelligence, they would insult, your comic book knowledge. You could have been reading comic books longer than these dudes have been alive, and they still say that, oh, it was still too smart for you. Like, the hell? Like, did we watch the same movie? Like, well, what are you talking about? I just don't get it. LGC, what's the complaint that you're tired of hearing the most?
I'm tired of hearing people hate on Batman versus Superman.
Man, please. I knew she was gonna come up with that. She took that bait. She took that bait and ran with it. No, I did not say that. I did not say that specifically for you. But no, for real.
What's the answer?
No, for real. What's the real?
I think one of the things I really hate is, everybody making a serious issue about the race of these characters, when they come out in the movies or when they come out in the comics. I think race is the biggest thing I think I have an issue with.
Okay, I hear you, and it's not invalid. I do think that in certain cases, the race for the character is important. Like for Iron Fist, that one was important. People argue that it wasn't, that it was more important for him to be Asian than for him to be white. I said, but to me, no, it was important for him to be white because that was a founding characteristic of his character, and it meant a lot because it's all about him being the man out of place, and honestly, the cultural appropriation, that type of thing, and how Danny Rand was basically portrayed in the comic books. So in that case, it was important to me. I still will argue for Scarlett Johansson being the Major in Ghost in the Shell. I will still argue for that. I mean, we could have a debate over it, but I'd still argue that was the right thing to do. But as far as like Nick Fury, I was still bothered a little slightly by Michael B. Jordan being cast as Johnny Storm, but only because his sister was white and he was black. Something about that just, I don't know. If Susan was black too, I think I would have had less of a problem with it. But I do hear you, what you're saying about that. I do hear you, and you're right. That is a very real thing. You were gonna say? I
was just gonna say. Let me just rebut you real quick. Iron Fist is trash. Iron Fist is trash. We shouldn't even bring him up. Like, that's trash. Number one.
Look, the show was bad. The show was bad. I'm not arguing that. The show was bad. Okay, but as far as like casting and how they chose to portray the character, I think that was, I think that was important. I think
Straight
that was
trash.
important.
Straight trash.
Yeah.
Number two,
Wow.
about the Johnny Storm thing, with Michael B. Jordan. I mean, that was easily explained. It was explained in the movie. The guy was his father, and he adopted the chick. So I'm like, but it's like it's kind of weird. It's like now we have these mixed families, and nobody can fathom a black kid in a white family or a white kid in a black family. Like that's not that far fetched.
I mean,
like I look at it this way. Okay, it's like, okay, my whole thing is this. Okay, it kind of goes back to, okay, we know Johnny and Sue are siblings. They're blood relatives. They're as close as they could possibly be. Okay, so the thing is, I'm like a lot of us thinking like, okay, we're not really having an issue because Johnny Storm is black. How come his sister can't be black too? Like,
right.
Why?
Right.
Like,
that was my thing.
Why was it like so important? If like y'all were willing to change Johnny Storm, but not his sister.
But the dad was black. So like, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It's like, look, the thing is like we again, like we were going in not knowing how to dynamic. We don't know like if it was like going to be her dad and he got adopted, it was going to be his dad and she got adopted. But it's still just kind of like one of those like things that like creation wise doesn't quite add up as well, and like even then in the movie they tried to like sort of have that dynamic about like this kind of tension because she's adopted a little bit, but they never follow through with it. So it was like, what was the point? So it's like it's not to say that I think it couldn't work, but I mean, obviously because the movie was garbage, there's a lot of criticism for it to go around, and that's at this point, like I think because of that essentially kind of makes that argument a little valid. So that's just how I look at it. I'm sorry.
All right. So what's yours, Eric?
First, I'll just say something about the Nick Fury album. Nick Fury being black wasn't a thing until 2001 with the Ultimates. But let's not forget his likeness was based off Samuel L. Jackson. So it came full circle that he was eventually cast. So the thing that I'll say gets me, and it might be a little more of an obscure response, and maybe might play more to those of us in the Detroit area, but people in other metropolitan areas might know as well. The notion that bigger cons, those like Motor City Comic Con, are not about comics anymore, I think is ridiculous, because they're like, it's all about the media guests or whatever, and they're like, there are no comic books on the floor. It's like, if you go to Motor City Comic Con, what portion of the floor are you looking at? Because like at least a third or more of that showroom floor is comic books, and it's probably not hyperbole when they say over 1 million comics available for purchase. I mean, there are vendors of comics, action figures, trade paperbacks, every kind of collectible, as far as you can see there. Maybe some of these complaints could be labeled more at San Diego because that is like the big movie con now. But I mean, you have comic book artists there every year. I mean, it's your fault if you're not going up to them to get your book signed or to buy prints or original artwork. But then, I mean, the media guests by and large are from comic book properties and say other, geeky things, but they really came through with, the DC superhero side of things, because this year they had like Stephen Amell, Cress Williams, other stars from Arrow and Black Lightning, and it's what I think is when people say that they don't think it focuses on the comics enough or media's overtaken it. The bigger cons explore all the aspects, and I like exploring things from as many different sides of every facet I can when I go to an event. Like when some people say I'm tired of going to cons, it's like, but you're not exploring it. Are you meeting the artists, the celebrities attending the panels, or are you just walking around in your costume waiting for people to take pictures of you? Yes, I cosplay, but I go around and do everything else as well. And, you know, some people aren't experiencing enough of it. And what's funny is we've seen this war of such, maybe it's minor and not as many people are picking up on it, but people saying like there's not the con for the comic book fan. And that's untrue because hence Motor City Comic Con. But if that, you know, weren't the case, we wouldn't have all these other smaller cons popping up now. Like now we also have a larger con, another larger con coming in Michigan Comic Con this August. But, you know, we have those small ones like Extravacon and, you know, Your Comic Con, which does the events in Redford, Taylor, Ypsilanti, and various other places throughout the state. You know, there's Fantasticon. And when you go to these, it's really the diehard fans. And there are so many of these because there are those diehards keeping it alive. And I think some of these complaints are started. If you see where they came from, it kind of started from the top down because there was a certain convention that was cool, but went under around here. We're not going to name them by name, but Ken Shiro probably knows what I'm talking about. And I'll say it outright when we're off air. But they went under because they fucked up and didn't know how to do what they were doing. And then they blamed saying there's not the demand for, you know, the comic book side of things. And then they blamed the fans saying, you know,
man, now you got my curiosity piqued because I can't seem to remembe which one you talking about. So I'm gonna have to definitely hear which one that was. Yeah, absolutely.
And then we can't shame the people who just like the movies, the TV shows, or the cartoons. Maybe they just don't want to read something, but everyone has to get into something somewhere. Like when there were 1 million Harley Quinn cosplayers 2 years ago for Suicide Squad, I said, what's wrong with that? Again, what's wrong with an attractive person dressing up as a character you like? And B, you had to get into Batman and Harley Quinn at somewhere in your life. Likely Batman and the animated series. Maybe you didn't pick up the comics. What's wrong with some girl liking Harley Quinn and Suicide Squad? And what's not to say she's going to pick up those comics from, you know, Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner, and she's not about to be a lifelong fan.
Even if she doesn't, she's a fan. Period. Yeah, she's a fan.
That's like I met a Harley Quinn cosplayer at UmaCon last year, and I think she wanted a picture of me because I was Green Arrow, and I'm like, yeah, sure. So I started talking to Harley with her, and you know, she didn't know the comics because, you know, she said she wasn't much of a reader, but I'm like, that's cool. I'm not going to shame you for it, but, you know, if you pick up a comic, you know, pick up Hot in the City or whatever, you know, give it a chance if you feel like it, but it doesn't hurt to throw out those recommendations because maybe, you know, they'll be in the shop because that's actually a trade paperback that, you know, they've sold at Target and Meijer and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, you know, we have a responsibility to basically grow this fandom, and we don't want to grow it by being so overly negative that we make people not want to be a part of it. I mean, we all love this stuff. So
when I did my full-on Joker that, you know, actually looked great because, you know, I had my friend Jasmine, who's a great makeup artist, you know, helping me out. But, you know, I did that at UmaCon 2016, and, you know, I was walking by and sure there were Jared Leto Jokers and stuff, but you know, I was going for an amalgam look, and my makeup was based off the Arkham Asylum video game, and my suit was from the Endgame comic, and my hair was based on Ledger, so it was a mashup of different Jokers into one cohesive vision that worked. But I walked by someone and I overheard them say, "Oh, another Joker," and it's like, I don't care how many other Jokers are here. First of all, I look better than them. Secondly, you know, it's like, I was a Joker fan before you were swimming around in your daddy's sack.
Wow, dude. Wow. Okay. On that note, we're gonna kind of try and wrap it up because, man, we're going somewhere we don't want to go. So anyway, guys, we went about an hour and a half talking about this very contentious topic. We hope that, you know, there was a lot of good thoughts that you had, a lot of different viewpoints that you got to see. And so the next time that you actually do interact with your fellow fans online and you see some fans kind of behaving badly, you'll kind of maybe call them out on it a little bit and say, hey, you know, we all love this stuff, but you know, there's no real reason for you to spew vitriol just because someone has a different opinion or a different viewpoint than yourself. We all need to learn from each other and grow with each other as fans of different fandoms. So next week we are gonna have another brand new show. We don't know exactly what we're going to be covering, but make sure you stay tuned to right here on our Facebook live channel, or join us over on YouTube at youtube.com/culturejunkies. You'll find us there. I want to thank LGZ, Fallen Marvel, and Eric Joseph for joining me on the show today. Got any comments, guys, before we get out of here?
All I gotta say is I just appreciate you for allowing me to talk about this and kind of just make it, you know, the topic of the week and whatnot, because you know, sure, I just think it's something we need to be talked about, with all of us being, you know, pop culture junkies and whatnot. So, you know, it's like, you know, we want the best for what we love, you know.
Absolutely. And you know, we're all fans. We need to not do that. I think you did an absolutely fantastic job in building this topic for the show today, so I would look forward to seeing more from you. LGZ, Eric, any final thoughts before we go?
I would just like to say, Fallen Marvel it was a great article. I read it. I just posted it in the chat. So if anyone else wants to read the article, it's there for you guys. Just click the link and check it out. Please leave your comments on the website and let us know how you feel. Yeah,
and if you liked it a lot, do share it. You want to inspire some great thoughts with some of your fellow fans and get some of their feedback on it. Please do share it around. Eric?
Not much. Again, it's great being here, and this panel is proof that people of different backgrounds from different areas of the country can come together to civilly talk about things. So it shouldn't be that hard elsewhere.
Amen.
And, again, you know, as we were talking, I don't know the exact date it'll be out, but keep an eye out on the Blu-ray review section on We Got This Covered for my thoughts on complete thoughts on Lightning Season 1 within the next week or so. And I will be linking that within the Culture Junkies group on Facebook once it goes live.
Yeah, if you're not a fan of the Culture Junkie Nation, make sure you go to the top of our Facebook fan page and you can sign up and join the group. Make sure you answer the questions. And if you're already a fan of the Culture Junkie Nation, invite some more of your friends to come and join this absolutely fantastic group as we learn and grow and appreciate all facets of fandom together. Make sure you are back here next week, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Central for the next episode of Culture Junkies Live. Until then, I'm your boy, your host, Kenshiro. We'll see you guys later. Good night now.
Peace, y'all. Have a good one.